Joe Montana was the epitome of a winner, always at his best when the stakes were the highest. He had a perfect 4-0 record in the Super Bowl. He had the greatest playoff run in NFL history. And you don't just get the nickname Joe Cool. So how good was Joe Montana actually? To understand how good he was, we need to go back to the beginning in western Pennsylvania, the home of legendary quarterbacks like Johnny Unitas, Joe Namath, Dan Marino, and Jim Kelly. Montana grew up 30 miles south of Pittsburgh in the working-class town of
he just named Goat.
Monongahela. He attended Ringgold High School in Carroll Township, where, in his junior year, he was named the starting varsity QB. And right away, he showed off his golden arm. Joe was a three-sport star at Ringgold, but it was football where he really separated himself. And it was his ability as a quarterback that had college scouts coming out in droves. After being recruited by many national powerhouse schools, he committed to Notre Dame because Montana's favorite player was Terry Hanratty, a local guy who played quarterback for the Steelers and the Fighting Irish. But when Montana got to South Bend, he had to wait his turn. He didn't see the field in his first season because Irish coach Ara Parsegian had a rule against playing freshmen. So Montana's first game experience came in his second season, and that's where his history of comebacks began. As a sophomore in 1975, he rallied the Irish past North Carolina and Air Force on the road in back-to-back weeks. But that was just a glimpse of what was to come for Montana. He still had much to learn, and he was nowhere close to being a star. Then his career took a dramatic...
Look at little Joey on the bench. Nah, that number 3 jersey at Notre Dame, even though he had no swag, that's no swag. That's no swag. But
still had much to learn, and he was nowhere close to being a star. Then his career took a dramatic turn. In 1976, Montana missed the entire season with a separated shoulder. While he was recovering, he had to earn the trust of his new coach, Dan Devine, and that didn't happen right away. At the start of the 1977 season, he was the third string on the depth chart. Coach Devine would say that Montana hadn't been medically cleared.
Notre Dame quarterback Joe Montana was hit on that first sequence. He suffered a possible hyperextension of his right knee.
But Joe wasn't buying that explanation. Luckily, Montana was fully healthy for the Irish's Week 3 game against Purdue, because after benching one QB and losing another to an injury, a desperate Devine gave Joe another chance. And in true Joe Cool fashion, he never looked back. Led by their junior QB, Notre Dame erased a 10-point deficit in the fourth quarter and won 31-24. From that point on, Notre Dame was a juggernaut. The Irish won their final 10 games to go 11-1. And after blowing out Texas in the Cotton Bowl, they were voted Associated Press national champions. And during Montana's final year at Notre Dame, he cemented himself as a legend. In the 1978 season, he added comebacks against Pitt and USC to his belt. And then, in his final collegiate game, he took it to another level. On New Year's Day, Montana was back in the Cotton Bowl, but he was battling an illness that forced him to leave the game. In the fourth quarter, Notre Dame trailed 34-12.
Hold on, the illness forced him to leave the game? What the illness did he have? It forced him to leave the game? And bro, why he ain't telling us no stats, bro? Why we ain't got no stats? Like, we ain't got no stats for this? Like, how many touchdowns he threw? Like, what going on?
Montana to get back on the field and get hot. But they don't call him Joe Cool for nothing, so you can probably guess how this story ends. He led 3 touchdown drives in the final 7.5 minutes. And on the game's final play, he found Chris Haynes in the end zone to give Notre Dame a 35-34 walk-off win.
Unbelievable finish.
After that performance, Montana was both the comeback kid and a solid NFL prospect. So, in the 1979 NFL draft, the 49ers selected him in the 3rd round, 82nd overall. But just like at Notre Dame, Montana didn't get to start right away in the pros.
Bro, who the Bro, he just won a natty back to back. Throwing touchdowns out of touchdowns, come back. And he going a 3rd round. Who was better than him? Somebody let me know in the comments what's going on, bro.
That job belonged to another young QB, Steve DeBerg. Running head coach Bill Walsh's West Coast offense, DeBerg set NFL records for both completions and attempts in a season. He was 3rd in the league in completion percentage, but he also threw more interceptions than TDs. The turnovers, combined with a terrible...
He had 7... Hold on. I ain't never seen no shit like that. He led the league in
But he also threw more interceptions than TDs. The turnover...
interceptions with... Bro. How you throw more interceptions but got more completions than everybody, though? How does that even, like...
combined with a terrible defense, added up to a 2-14 record for the Niners. That season, Montana took just a handful of snaps. He also saw time as the holder on kicks. In fact, his first NFL pass was on a fake field goal against the Los Angeles Rams. He started one game, but completed just 5 of 12 passes for 36 yards and was replaced by DeBerg. After that performance, people questioned if Montana could handle the NFL game. But in 1980, he answered those questions emphatically. At the start of the season, Montana was still backing up DeBerg, but by the midway point, an opportunity finally opened up. After a 3-0 start, the Niners lost 3 in a row. And when DeBerg threw 5 interceptions in Week 6 against the Dallas Cowboys,
Young in motion, DeBerg back to throw it. Intercepted!
Walsh switched to Montana, but Joe couldn't hold on to the starting job, and DeBerg got another shot. Then, in Week 13, Walsh went back to Montana. A week later, Joe Cool would make NFL history, and at that moment, a dynasty was born. In that Week 14 game, the Niners trailed the winless New Orleans Saints 35-7 at halftime. Walsh even told the team in the locker room that he didn't believe they could rally, but he forgot that Montana was the master of the comeback at Notre Dame. And in the second half, San Francisco scored 28 unanswered points. Montana threw for 2 scores and ran for a TD. Ray Werschring's field goal in overtime gave the Niners a 38-35 win. For the next 42 years, this comeback was the biggest regular season rally in NFL history, until the Vikings surpassed it in 2022. Montana finished the season as the starter. He led the NFL in completion percentage at 64.5%, and with Joe at the helm, the Niners looked like a team on the rise. San Fran confirmed their trust in Joe just before the start of the 81 season, when they traded Steve DeBerg to the Denver Broncos. It was Montana's show now, but he still wasn't a finished product. He had
look at the hair. I'm talking about he looked like a legend.
Limited game action, so it was valid to question whether he could perform for the duration of a season. The good news was Bill Walsh was an offensive genius, and Montana was a quick learner, because in 1981, the Niners posted the best record in the NFC at 13-3. Montana led the league in completion percentage again at 63.7% and threw 19 touchdown passes. He was named to his first Pro Bowl and finished second in MVP voting. Not to mention, San Francisco finished 7th in the league in scoring. But this team wasn't just about putting up points. Their defense was also one of the best in the league, so it was no surprise when they cruised past the Giants in the divisional round of the playoffs. But in the NFC Championship game, the Niners hosted America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. Now, back in Week 6, San Francisco blew out Dallas 45-14. So this was a guaranteed win for Montana and company. Right? Of course not. The Cowboys were a 12-win team in the regular season and now had a chip on their shoulder. And sure enough, Dallas led 27-21 with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, which set up one of the most famous drives and one of the greatest plays in NFL history. The Niners drove from their own 11-yard line all the way down to the Dallas 6 with just 58 seconds to go. They faced a 3rd and 3, which was the perfect moment for Montana to strike. He rolled to his right, nearly rolling all the way out of bounds, before seemingly throwing up a prayer Dwight Clark came down with in the back of the end zone, and the Niners took the lead.
Throwing in the end zone.
I ain't gonna lie. Cause bro,
a prayer Dwight Clark came down with in the back of the end zone, and the Niners took the lead.
Throwing in the end zone.
Off the back foot. Joe Cool.
Years later, this play would become known simply as the catch, and San Fran were on their way to Super Bowl 16 against Walsh's old team, the Bengals. But would the moment prove too big for the young Montana? Come on now, it's Joe Cool we're talking about. He ran for a touchdown and threw for another as San Francisco built a 20-0 halftime lead. The Niners held on to win 26-21, and Montana had his first ring, while also being named Super Bowl MVP. But the high of winning a title didn't last long. The 1982 season was a dud for San Francisco, and they were 0-2 when the players went on strike in September.
For the first time in the 63-year history of the NFL, a strike will stop play.
They finished 3-6 and missed the playoffs. All of a sudden, there were whispers questioning if that Niners team was just a one and done. Well, in 1983, they put those questions to rest. San Fran went back to the NFC Championship game. This time, they took on Washington. In the fourth quarter, Montana put together another classic comeback. 3 touchdown passes to tie the game at 21-21. But Washington kicked a late field goal for the win and a trip to the Super Bowl. And So in 1984, Montana and the Niners came into that season with a bitter taste in their mouth. Montana
Is that
responded
Bird?
with his best season to that point. He set a career high with 28 touchdown passes, and the 49ers rolled to a 15-1 record. But in the NFC playoffs, Montana was shaky, throwing 4 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Thankfully, the defense bailed him out, and the Niners were on their way to Super Bowl 19. It was basically a home game for them. The Super Bowl that year was in Palo Alto, California, at Stanford Stadium, about 35 miles south of San Francisco. But despite the home field advantage, the Niners faced their biggest challenge. On the other side were the Miami Dolphins, led by their second-year star quarterback, Dan Marino, who set an NFL record in the regular season with 48 touchdown passes. But if you know,
That bitch was throwing demers down the field. Boy, that nigga Dan Marino. We gotta watch the Dan Marino video. I want to see a Dan Marino video. Let me know in the comments. I know a Dan. I ain't know a Joe too much, but Dan, of course you're gonna know about.
anything about Dan Marino's
arm.
career, you know
That arm
which
he got.
Western PA quarterback would go on to win this duel. Montana made up for all his prior postseason woes, throwing for 331 yards and 3
330?
touchdowns as San
330 and
Francisco
3.
rolled to a 38-16 win. Montana also collected another Super Bowl MVP award.
Another
So,
one?
in just
Another
4
one.
seasons as the starter, already won 2 rings and 2 Super Bowl MVPs.
Bro,
and
who
it looked
had
like the
a-
Niners wouldn't stop there, because in 1985 they drafted Jerry Rice
Oh,
and running
man.
back Roger Craig to complement Montana.
Ah,
But
look.
despite that,
Hey, who had a better start to their career than Joe Montana? Who had a better start? I mean, Pat Mahomes, but the first 4 years he had 2 final. Did he have 2 Super Bowl MVPs, Pat Mahomes? I'm trying to think. I don't know. I don't think so, bro. That's crazy.
trio
Joe
giving
Cool might be the
defensive
GOAT.
coordinators nightmares.
I mean,
Over
Brady
the next 3
kinda-
seasons,
Brady
the
didn't have
49ers
Super
failed
Bowl
to get
MVPs,
over the
though.
hump
He
in
had
the
Super
playoffs.
Bowls.
And while that was happening, Montana's body was starting to break down. In the 1985 playoffs, the Niners managed just 3 points in a loss at home to the Giants. Then, in week 1 of the 1986 season, facing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Montana took a huge hit to his lower back. He suffered a ruptured disc. The injury was so severe that the surgeon who operated on him recommended that Joe stop playing. Montana ignored the advice and got himself ready to play
Nah.
again. 9 weeks later, he was back in action, and he led the 49ers back to the playoffs. But he was about to suffer
Told him to
another
stop
major
playing?
blow. In the 1986 divisional round, Montana took a vicious but clean hit from Giants nose tackle Jim Burt at the end of the first half. Montana suffered a severe concussion, and the Niners went on to lose 49-3. And
Damn.
Joe's problems only got worse from here. In 1987, the 49ers went 13-2, and Montana threw a career-high 31 touchdowns. But he, Roger Craig, and other players divided the locker room when they crossed the picket line to play during a player strike, and the team would even further be torn apart in the playoffs. In the divisional round, the top-seeded Niners hosted the Minnesota Vikings. Montana played poorly,
Montana drills to the sideline and incomplete.
and Walsh benched him for Steve Young in the second half. Young played extremely well, just like he did in the regular season when he subbed in for Montana from time to time. And all of a sudden, Montana faced multiple threats. He needed elbow surgery after the playoffs, so his health was in question. Then there was Steve Young now breathing down his neck as well.
Yeah,
At the start of the
Steve Young.
1988 preseason, the tension in San Francisco reached all-time highs. Walsh was almost fired in the offseason, but instead, the Niners took away his role as team president. And after all the playoff failures, Walsh wanted to shake things up in a big way. He wanted to trade Joe Montana, hoping to cash in on the superstar quarterback
Damn.
before his body failed him. And as you'd expect, there were plenty of suitors for Montana's services, but no one would meet San Francisco's high price. So Walsh began training camp in 1988 with a quarterback controversy that he had created, the 32-year-old Montana versus the 26-year-old Young. And what did Walsh do? He threw gasoline on the fire. He told reporters that Young would eventually take Montana's job.
Well, our strength is at quarterback, but our problem is we have 2, and there's a quarterback controversy developing. We're going to have to select between Steve Young and Joe Montana.
Leaving Joe furious. He would go
After
on to
2
keep the
Super
starting
Bowls,
job,
2
but Young played a
MVPs?
lot, and the quarterbacks were splitting time more than ever. The issue was the Niners weren't responding well to the strategy.
Bill Walsh, you a smart man. Evil genius. Smart man.
Joe's in,
What?
going right. Steve's in, we're going left.
And after 11 games, they were just 6-5. So, faced with an angry locker room, Walsh was forced to make a decision. He made Montana the full-time starter for the rest of the year, and the players rallied behind their leader.
Hold on. He started Steve Young and went 6-5. Boy, he had to be drunk.
The Niners won 4 of their last 5 games in the regular season, and they took the NFC West with a 10-6 record.
Roger Craig, touchdown.
With momentum on their side, San Francisco rolled to Super Bowl 23 against the Bengals. The game was a defensive battle, and with 3:10 left in the fourth quarter, the Bengals led 16-13.
2 minutes to go. San Francisco needs 3.
And the Niners had the ball at their 8. So Montana needed to move the offense at least 60 yards to get into field goal range. And in true Joe Cool fashion, he led one of the greatest 2-minute drills ever. Montana took the Niners 92 yards in 11 plays. And with 34 seconds left, he hit John Taylor over the middle for a 10-yard TD pass.
Montana, touchdown.
Goddamn, Joe Cool, bro. Legend.
With that comeback, Montana made Walsh a champion in his final game as an NFL coach. Walsh retired after 10 seasons in San Francisco.
Hey, you know why he retired? He about to get his ass fired. That's why he retired. He about to get up out of here. Cause you about to bitch and Joe Cool. Yeah.
Had grown tired of the coach's mind games, so they were eager to enter the post-Walsh era, and they were doing so as defending champions. So, in 1989, Montana and the 49ers felt like they had something new to play for. Under first-year coach George Seifert, San Fran tore through the league with a 14-2 record. They led the NFL in scoring at 27.6 points per game, and Montana was voted NFL MVP after completing a career-high 70.2% of his passes, while throwing for 3,521 yards and 26 touchdowns. But all that was just the warm-up, because Montana was on an entirely different level than everyone else in the playoffs. He threw for 241 yards and 4 touchdowns as the Niners cruised past Minnesota 41-13 in the divisional round. Then he had 262 yards and 2 touchdowns in the conference championship, with San Fran winning 30-3 over the Rams. But Joe Cool always saved his best for last, and the Niners showed no mercy as they destroyed John Elway's Broncos in the Super Bowl, 55-10. Montana threw for 297 yards and a Super Bowl record 5 touchdowns.
I'm taking Joe Cool over the field. I'm taking Joe Cool over the field, man. Y'all got Tom Brady over Joe Cool? Let me know in the comments, man. I don't know about that, man. We got to rethink that, man.
He tied Terry Bradshaw with a 4th ring, and he set a record with his 3rd Super Bowl MVP award. This is widely considered the greatest playoff run ever by a quarterback. Montana completed 78.3% of his passes and had 11 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. A perfect passer rating in the NFL is 158.3, and Joe had a 146.4 rating for the playoffs.
That's, bro, what? 11 touchdowns, no picks, 78%, bro. Who is he? He must have been an alien.
In 1990, Montana continued his elite play. He set a career high with 3,944 passing yards and was voted MVP for the 2nd year in a row. The Niners also cruised to a 14-2 record, but they were leaning much more heavily on their ferocious defense than the year prior. They returned to the NFC Championship game, which was a slugfest dominated by the defenses. Early in the fourth quarter, the 49ers led the Giants 13-9 and had the ball. A touchdown would have sent San Francisco to a 3rd consecutive Super Bowl, but the New York defense kept that from happening. On a 3rd and 10 play with 10 minutes remaining, Montana was forced to scramble out of the pocket. Giants defensive end Leonard Marshall chased him from behind, and as Montana set his feet to throw, Marshall delivered a crushing blindside hit.
But watch Marshall come from behind here, puts his helmet right between his shoulder blades.
Montana was in agony as he laid on the Candlestick Park turf, and he wouldn't return to the game. Later, it was revealed that he suffered a broken pinky and a bruised sternum. The Giants kicked a field goal on the ensuing drive to cut the margin to 1. Then, with 2.5 minutes to go, they recovered a Roger Craig fumble, and New York kicked a game-winning field goal as time expired.
And the
I had
kick
to cry real too.
is good.
I had to cry real too.
Pat Summerall said on the CBS telecast,
There will be no three-peat.
Montana may have failed to get another ring, but he had just completed one of the greatest decades of football in NFL history. Unfortunately, Montana's career was about to hit a downward spiral. Late in the 1991 preseason, it was reported that Joe had a torn tendon in his throwing elbow. For years, he had played through elbow pain.
Of course, I see. That's why he wore that thing right there. I was wondering why he wore that shit. He was throwing dimers with that elbow pad on. Dimers.
This injury was too severe. The 49ers in Montana tried to avoid need surgery, but in October of 1991, he went under the knife. Montana would miss almost 2 full seasons because of the surgery and complications from it. And by the time Montana had returned to the field for a Monday night game in Week 16 of the 1992 season, Steve Young had become a superstar in his own right. After taking over for Young at halftime, Montana completed 15 of 21 passes for 126 yards and 2 touchdowns, both in the fourth quarter, as the Niners beat the Lions 24-6. But Steve Young went on to win the MVP in 1992, which meant Montana would spend the rest of his 49ers tenure on the bench. After 14 years in San Francisco, Montana was about to enter the final phase of his career in a different city. In March of 1993, Seifert announced that Young was officially the team's starter, and Joe would not be allowed to compete for the job in training camp. The Niners gave Montana and his agent permission to find a new team, and a week later, Montana chose the Chiefs.
I'm going to head on into Kansas City here in the next day or so and get busy. I got my playbook, and Mr. Hackett's looking for me all day.
Kansas City was a playoff team and saw Montana as their missing piece. And so on April 20th, 1993, the 49ers traded Montana, defensive back
went to the Chiefs. Bro.
David Whitmore, and a third-round pick in 94 to Kansas City in exchange for the Chiefs' first-round pick in 93. With Montana on board, the Chiefs were ready to make a run. In 1993, KC won the AFC West at 11-5. In the divisional round, the Chiefs went to Houston to play the Oilers. Against a tough defense, Montana led 3 touchdown drives in the fourth quarter, and the Chiefs won 28-20. And so it was on to the AFC Championship game. The Chiefs traveled to Buffalo to take on the powerhouse Bills for a trip to the Super Bowl. Joe Cool was brought in for this very moment. But in the third quarter, with his team down by 2 touchdowns, Montana was hit by 3 Bills defenders as he attempted a pass. His head hit the frozen turf, giving him a concussion, and he did not return. The Chiefs lost 30-13. Then in 1994, the Chiefs took a major step back. They finished 9-7, and while they made the playoffs again, they lost in the wild card round to the Dolphins.
The Chiefs season is over. Montana's career, question mark.
The high point of that season came in Week 7, when Montana produced one of his greatest comebacks ever in one of the greatest games in NFL history. On a Monday night in Denver, Montana took on Elway and the Broncos. Both quarterbacks were excellent, and the game went back and forth. With 1:29 to go in the fourth quarter, Elway scored on a 4-yard run to give the Broncos a 4-point lead, but he left too much time for the comeback kid. When Joe got the ball back, Kansas City was 75 yards from the end zone, but that didn't matter. With 13 seconds left, the Chiefs had a first and goal at the Denver 5. Montana dropped back to pass and hit Willie Davis for the game-winning TD.
He throws to the end zone. It is caught for the touchdown by Davis. Willie Davis. Unbelievable.
It was the 26th fourth-quarter comeback of Montana's career.
26?
It would also be his last. Although Montana could still produce greatness like that, his body was telling him that it was time to stop playing. And so, on April 18th, 1995, Montana retired at age 38.
It truly has been a great 16 years. It's been like living a dream. I've had a wonderful career. Thank you very much.
In 2000, he was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in his first year of eligibility.
Of course,
so how good was Joe Montana actually? The answer is really simple. Outside of Tom Brady, he's the greatest player ever.
He was tough, I don't know. Tom Brady's first 3 rings, he wasn't like the defense. It was Bill Belichick in the defense, man. Then the rest of them, his last 4. So it's really 4-4. Yeah. It's really 4-4. Yeah. I don't know. It's question mark, man. I don't know. Let me know in the comments what y'all think. I know it ain't gonna be on my head, but let me know in the comments what y'all think, man. I'm gonna see y'all next, man. No cap.